Hey everyone, it's Matt Krieger to review the October system-wide numbers. So let's hop right into it. First off, system-wide revenue, we did see a pretty significant decrease from where we were last October. You can see here we were about just under $20,000 per location in terms of revenue. Last year, we were sitting at about $35,000 of revenue per location, and that is the second of 3 months. We saw the same thing in August. We saw a slight increase in September, and then we see a decrease here again in October. So, two of the last 3 months, we have seen decreases in terms of month over month revenue per location. However, as we look at year to date, on average, the locations have done $237,000 of revenue. Compare that to last year at $150,000 revenue. So that's about 60% growth, about $87,000 in terms of average growth per location. And again, that's a rough average, but still, we've seen really, really positive growth year over year. Now it's really just kind of looking at seasonally why we've seen some I guess softer growth or retraction over the last couple of months. So in terms of appointments, you can see the appointment completion percentage. I always kind of think this is news, and or it's not news until it is. So in other words, as long as we're sticking here in this 93, 95% plus category, it really is just kind of a data point to know. In terms of appointments, here you can kind of see some of the seasonality. Now, some of this is locations onboarding into ServiceMinder. And so, really until about this May timeframe, I wouldn't necessarily, look at a lot of this as actual data because we just don't have the entire system within ServiceMinder. But then once you get out here, you can start to see some of the seasonality. You can see the build up here through August. You can see some of the decrease here into the fall. We had 2678 appointments in October compared to just not just over, but 2,800 appointments, 2,851 in September. Average revenue per appointment was $314, pretty on par with where we were for the year of 326. So everything there is on target. Again, seasonally, I think this is probably reasonable, and so really nothing to be too concerned about in terms of the decrease. It's more just why we're seeing this kind of retraction in revenue or softness in revenue in October compared to last year. With that being said, looking at proposals, our proposals again were in terms of number, we're really, really strong. Sent out 488 proposals system wide, an average of 26 per location. Compare that to last month where we were just under 500, really, right on target with where we were in September as well. If you look at the volume that was sent out, we sent out just under $3 million system wide in proposals. Again, very, very on target with pretty much the four of the last 5 months. You can see here in June, July, and September, right on target. We had a pop here in August. So system wide in terms of proposals, still really, really strong. Average proposal value for the last 6 months has been $5,700. The average acceptance of a proposal has been just under $2,000 at 1905. And again, that's trailing 6 months. So you can see that really, even though we're getting some big proposals out there, and again, I think I shared last month, there's two or three proposals that are really driving this number up. If you took those out, the average proposal value really kind of decreases down to around 2,500, and then the average acceptance really stays the same. So um, in terms of close rate, now I did update this, and what I mean by when I updated this is I went back and re-pulled all the numbers because I know that there's probably been some acceptance on proposals that we sent out in September, for instance, that we weren't capturing. And so you can see when I did that, really outside of this outlier month here in June, really that proposal acceptance rate sits between about 32 and 35%, really relatively consistent. Now you'll see it drop down to 20% here in October. Some of that's just timing. When we pull this number next month and we kind of look at some of the proposals that were sent out in October that closed in November, that number will come up. So I don't think there's really too much of a concern with this proposal rate decreasing. I think last month when we pulled this, we had seen that September was lower than the previous months too. So it's really kind of just the look back period that we're looking at that just doesn't give us the most up to date information because proposals are still out. So On average, it's taken 33 days to accept. And so this is kind of what I mean. I'm pulling these numbers here on 11/6. So really that means that any proposal after 10/6, we just haven't seen accepted yet. That's still kind of within this 33 days to accept. And you can see that 33 days is relatively consistent. It was 33 days in September, it was 30 days in August. And so really on average, it is taking a full month to hear back on most proposals and get them accepted. That's really the results for October. One thing I did want to mention is as we get into the latter part of the fall here, November and December, really that's when a lot of businesses sit down and kind of go through a budgeting process. And while I know everybody's busy and they might not have time for a full budgeting process, one thing I think that is really important is to take a look at all your clients and just reevaluate the profitability. I always tell all of my clients, you really should be increasing your prices annually. And so if you don't have that built into your contracts or that's not built into your process, now is really the time to sit down and kind of look at what that profitability per client looks like. If you're not increasing your prices annually, the problem with that is people are increasing your prices annually. In other words, your subcontractors, you're paying them more each year, all the way down to software vendors are increasing their fees 3 to 4% a year. And so eventually, if you don't increase your prices, your margins just get thinner and thinner and thinner. And so that really is something that you could make a good practice of doing is increasing those prices annually. And then the other thing is really looking at the true profitability per job. If you're doing a job and each month they're paying you $500, well, how much are you paying your subcontractor? You'd be surprised. I think you might think, well, I'm paying them, $300 every month as well. Go back and look at what you've actually paid them. You'd be surprised. Sometimes it's 305, sometimes it's 310, sometimes it's 315. They're charging a little bit extra here and there. And each little bit of that decreases your margin. And so if you're not able to hit that 50 to 40% margins, which really does need to be the target, and you have some jobs that are in the 20s or the 30s, it's really, really hard to break even and or make any money on jobs that are in between 20 and 30%. So again, short of doing a full budgeting exercise, which I think really is a good practice, but short of doing that, I think taking an hour to sit down and really look at your profitability on a job by job basis would really be worthwhile exercise to do sometime over the next 2 months. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me. Until next month, that's all I have. Thank you.